The Rise and Shine podcast series is made possible by the generous support of Bonnie Vozar of Chicago, Illinois.
You know, when Helen received instruction and discipline, when she was forced to uncover her essence by a teacher who believed in her worth, Helen could shine. And then she became the first deaf, blind person in the United States to get a college degree.
This is Rise and Shine, a podcast that offers timeless wisdom and uplifting meditations to fill your heart, feed your soul, and start your day on a positive note. Here is Adrienne Gold-Davis.
Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, also known as the Rebbe, famously taught that every person is a diamond. He viewed every soul as infinitely precious, unbreakable, and divine. Even if someone's exterior appears covered in dirt, the Rebbe taught that our purpose is to look past the surface and help to polish that soul so that its inner light can shine brightly. You know, I thought about this the other day after I rewatched The Miracle Worker, that 1962 classic biopic of the extraordinary Helen Keller. In it, a young Patty Duke makes her debut as the blind and deaf Helen, whose parents are both frustrated and overwhelmed by her challenges, and yet still very indulgent of her behaviors. Now, those behaviors were so antisocial, almost animalistic in their lack of civilized demeanor, and her parents never believed that she could ever be any more than she was. Yes, she was loved passionately, but she was indulged and boundaryless because they believed that her inability to communicate meant there was a lack of intelligence, and so they allowed her to run wild through their lives for almost 7 years. Well, eventually, at their wits' end, they accept this teacher into their home. It's a young woman who herself struggled with her own vision, and her name was Annie Sullivan. On March 3rd of 1887, Helen Keller met Anne Sullivan, the teacher who transformed her life. At just 20 years old, Anne was a graduate of the Perkins School for the Blind, and she arrived in Helen's home to teach her. Helen's blindness and deafness notwithstanding, Anne knew she could reach her because she herself had endured a difficult childhood. She'd struggled with her own severe vision loss and spending years as a ward of the state in a place called Tewksbury Almshouse, which was an overcrowded home for the destitute, and it was under brutal conditions. And through patience and perseverance, Anne taught Helen language by manually signing into her hand, beginning with the word doll. Now, this breakthrough led to one of history's most remarkable teacher-student relationships and a lifelong friendship, later immortalized in the movie The Miracle Worker. And I suggest you watch this movie. For me, it was a reminder that latent intelligence cannot manifest unless and until someone believes it exists. There are diamonds buried deep in the rock and the kimberlite, and in each of us, that diamond, or the soul in this metaphor, must be fanned and faceted and shined to its potential. And that is what it is to be a parent. In his 1989 book, called Seeing Voices, A Journey into the World of the Deaf, neurologist Oliver Sacks explores deafness and sign language and deaf culture, challenging the hearing world's perception of the deaf as disabled and highlighting their rich visual language and unique community. And Oliver Sacks examined the history of deafness, the neurology of sign language, and the social struggles of the deaf community. In Seeing Voices, Dr. Sacks said that language is not just another faculty or skill. It's what makes thought possible, what separates thought from non-thought, what separates the human from the non-human. So we speak not only to tell other people what we think, but to tell ourselves what we think. Speech, he said, is a part of thought. Small wonder, then, that in the Torah, We humans are called nefesh chayim, many times translated as speaking souls. Many years ago now, a friend of mine brought a room to a standstill as she responded to a question asked of the rabbi who was teaching the class. She said, "If God is perfect and all-loving, then how do you explain disabled children?" Now, my other friend, the mother of girls with cerebral palsy, immediately stood up and spoke. She said, "All children have disabilities. Some of them you can see clearly, like my own daughters. Others may not be noticeable at first glance. My children are exactly whom they are supposed to be. The fact that you see where they have challenges might make them more obvious, but no different than the rest of us who are able to hide our own." And then the rabbi blew my mind, and he said this: all human beings are born with a disability. It's called our body because we are primarily souls, perfect, pure souls that enter into the coarse physical reality of life in a body. The soul is severely handicapped by the constraints of the human physical form. Our job is to know that the soul is perfect and that the body and the Yetzer Hara, the inclination towards laziness and self-servingness and evil and inertia, is always going to be challenging for you. And it's always going to be challenging to overcome that handicap. And that's what it means to live in growth mode. That is the job of a human being alive in a body. It's the fight against the desire to live and accept mediocrity in oneself and to push the snooze alarm on human spiritual development. Now, Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, in his book called Jewish Meditation, he says this: the Kabbalists point out that the body is not the self. Since I can speak of my body, the body cannot be me. The body is mine, something associated with me, but the ultimate me is something much more profound than the body. Now, using the same argument, he writes, I speak of my mind just as I speak of my body. This would imply that just as the body is not the real me, the mind is also not the real me. Carrying the argument a step further, I can even speak of my soul. This would imply that even the soul is not the real me. This being the case, the question of selfhood becomes very difficult indeed. He writes, what is the real me? A hint to the answer can be found in the Hebrew word for I, ani. It is significant to note that if the letters of ani are rearranged, they spell the word ayin, which denotes nothingness. This would seem to imply that the real me is the nothingness within me. This can be understood in a fairly straightforward manner. The real me is my sense of volition. It is the intangible will that impels me to do whatever I decide to do. Annie Sullivan understood that once Helen Keller could communicate, her intelligence would be opened up and made fully evident, and her unique soul could shine through. Helen's parents' indulgences of their daughter's behaviors were, yes, rooted in deep love, but also in deep ignorance. You know, when Helen received instruction and discipline, when she was forced to uncover her essence by a teacher who believed in her worth, Helen could shine. And then, after an education at both specialist and mainstream schools, we learned that Helen attended the Radcliffe College of Harvard University. She became the first deaf-blind person in the United States to get a college degree. Now, once a follower and devotee had a private audience with the Rebbe Rashab. Their discussion concerned several simple individuals who the Rebbe praised. This surprised a certain Reb Monya, and he asked the Rebbe, "What's the big deal about them?" The Rebbe responded, "They possess special qualities," to which Reb Monya replied, "Well, I don't see it." As was known, Reb Monya was a successful diamond merchant. When the Rebbe asked him whether he had a pouch of diamonds with him, he responded affirmatively. However, he said, due to the lack of sunshine, it would not be advisable to examine them presently. Later, Reb Monya took the pouch into a second room and displayed the diamonds, pointing out the incredible quality of one specific stone. The Rebbe remarked, "I don't see anything special in it." To which Reb Monya replied, "For that, one must be a maven, an expert." The Rebbe then told him, "When it comes to seeing the special qualities of a Jew's soul, one also has to be a maven. Let's activate our inner Annie Sullivan. There are so many diamonds in your life. Take the time to unearth them and share their luster."
Thanks for listening to Rise and Shine. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to Momentum Podcasts on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Join Adrienne again next time for more timeless wisdom and uplifting meditations that fill your heart, feed your soul, and start your day on a positive note.
This podcast was made possible by the generous support of Bonnie Vozar of Chicago, Illinois. Spread the wisdom. Inspire Jewish individuals around the globe by supporting Momentum's podcasts. To sponsor, contact podcast@momentumunlimited.org. You're listening to a Momentum podcast. For unlimited inspiration, wisdom, and empowerment, visit momentumunlimited.org.